Hello everyone, DKY Code here. Welcome back to another tutorial. So in this episode, we are just going to be looking at while loops in Python and how to effectively use them. Now, before I start this video, I want to make mention that I have timestamp linked in the description below. So if you're not a beginner and you need a quick refresher on some of the concepts that the Python while loops gives to us, feel free to check through the timestamp. But if you're a beginner, I want you to stick with me as we look at the best possible way to use Python while loops. Now, let's start this video off by actually understanding what we are going to learn from this video. Now, we'll start this video off by knowing what loops are in general and also take a look at the while loop statement. Okay, and under the while loop statement, you are just going to look at the syntax of the while loop and also implement a counter example to better help us appreciate the concept of while loop. Now, we'll look at using both while loop and for loop in the same program and also look at the loop control statements, which is the break, the continue, and the pass keyword. Now, we'll top that off by also knowing the difference between a comment and the pass keyword. And finally, we are just going to play with more examples on the while loop to also help us. Now, I will not want you to end this video by not taking anything from the video. So I'm just going to give you pointers as to how to remember what the Python while loop does. Now, let's get right into the video. Now, let's start by looking what loops are. Okay, so now loops is a fundamental concept, all right, in programming language that help us to execute a block of code multiple times. Some may also say that loops are programs that help us to perform repetitive tasks efficiently. Also, we can say that loops are a sequence of instructions that will continually run or repeat until a condition is being met. So this is the general definition of loops. Now our main focus here is on the while loop, but we have other loops, which is the for loop. And if you don't know what the for loops are, I have a video linked in the description below, so you can feel free to check that video out after you finish watching this video. Now let's look at what Python while loops are. Now, while loops are also used to repeat execution of code or a block of code that is controlled by a conditional expression. So here is the syntax of the while loop. Okay, so now what we have here is that we have the while keyword followed by a conditional expression. Now, inside the body of the while loop is what you call the code that we actually want to execute when this condition evaluates to true. So we have the while keyword, the conditional expression, and the code that we actually want to execute when this expression evaluates to true. Now, next off, let's look at a counter example. Now, assuming we actually want to write a short program that is going to display a message 5 consecutive times to a user. Now, what you can do is that we can actually use the while loop to display a message to the user 5 times. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to have how many times that I want this program to execute. So I'll have a variable called limit and I'll set this variable to 5. Now I'll have a count variable that starts from 0. So I'm going to use this count variable to actually write a condition. So the count variable with the limit to actually write a condition. So over here, what I'm going to do is that I'll say while my count, which is 0, is not equal to the limit variable, what I want to happen is that I actually want to print something to the user. So I'll have a formatted string over here and I'll say something like shouting. Then I'll pass the count over here so that we know at every stage we shout something. So we shouting 0, shouting 1, shouting 2 till 5. Okay, so lastly I'm going to increase the count by 1. Okay, I'm going to increase the count, so count plus equal 1. Now when I run this program, we see over here that we have shouting 0, shouting 1, shouting 2, 3 and 4. Now what can really throw you off as a beginner is always forgetting to increase the count variable. Okay, so now let's see what is going to happen when this count is not added to this program. Now when I run this code, we'll see that we have a star over here, meaning that the program is being stuck in a infinite loop or infinite loop. Okay, so now we see that this loop never ends. Okay, so what it's going to do is that it is going to continue to print until you run out of memory. So I'm going to interrupt it and stop the program over here. Now when I actually comment this code and bring it here, now when I run this program, we see that we have this message displayed 5 times to the user. Next off, we'll look at how to use for loop and while loop together. So I said if you don't actually know what the for loop actually does, I have a video linked in the description below. So feel free to check through the description and also watch that video after you're done watching this. Okay, so now let's look at how to actually use while loop with for loop. Now over here, assuming we actually want to print this also print a program that is going to actually execute a specific code, or the code inside the while loop 3 consecutive times. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'll have a variable called user data, and I also set it to 3, a value 3. I'll equally have a count variable which is set to 0. Now I'm also going to say that whilst the count, okay, is not equal to this user data, what should happen is that I want to have a for loop. Okay, so for x in a range of I have 1 to 3. Okay, so which will be 2. Now what I want to happen is that I want to print fighting. Okay, so fighting, then I'll bring an exclamation mark over here, and I'll say else. So we can actually use for loop, the else statement with for loop. So I'm going to print something like a formatted string over here, and I'll say something like done fighting. So done fighting, then I'll put the counter variable over the count variable over here, and I'll increase it by 1 so that it doesn't start off with 0. So now when we come here, we always don't have to forget to implement or to increase the count. Okay, so I'll increase the count by 1. Now when I run this program, I see that we have fighting, done fighting. Okay, so done fighting the first time, then we are starting the fight again. So fighting, done fighting the second time, then we will also have fighting, done fighting the third time. So we are actually using the while loop to guide this block of code to actually execute 2 times. Okay, but we actually want this this program to actually execute 3 times. Okay, so this is how to use the while loop with the for loop. Now what we'll look up next is the loop control statement. Okay, so now the loop control statement is what I said. We have the break, the continue, the pass, and we'll also look at the difference between a comment and the pass keyword. Now let's look at what the break statement does. So the Python break statement is used to break the execution flow of a loop. Okay, so when you are inside a loop, we actually use the break keyword to break out of the loop or to stop the loop. Now over here, let's look at the example of how to use the break keyword in the while loop. So what I'm going to do is that I'm also going to have a variable also called data, and I'll set it to let's say 5, okay, or let's say 10. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm also going to have a count variable that is set to 0. Now over here we'll also have the same thing. So whilst the count is not equal to the data, okay, that is the 5, or that is the limit. Now what I want to happen is that I'm just going to print a message to the user by saying something like this. So displaying displaying the number. Okay, displaying the number, then I'll have the count over here. Then I'm going to put a format F here to denote that this print statement is actually, this is a formatted string. Okay, now here what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a condition over here by saying that if the count equal 6. So when the count gets to 6, what I want to do is that I want to print something like this, something like so hey, hey, I was asked to stop the loop. Okay, so a simple message as that. So what is going to happen here is that I'm just going to bring the break keyword over here, and I'll increase the counts by 1 over here, so plus equal 1. Then after I'm done increasing the count, I'm going to have a print message over here displaying so now out of the loop. Okay, now so when I run this program, we will see that we have displaying the message, displaying the number 0 1 2 3. Now when we hit the sixth number, we see that the program has actually displayed, hey, I was asked to stop the loop. So the break keyword has actually been used to stop the execution of this loop. Okay, so that is what the break statement does. Now let's look at the continuous statement. Now the continuous statement is actually being used to skip the current iteration and continue with the next iteration. Now let's also take an example of how to use the continuous statement. So I'll have a variable over here called count, and so in this program we're just going to be using count a lot. So I'll set my count variable to 1, and what I'm going to do is that I'll use my while keyword over here and say whilst my count is less than or equal to 10, if my count equal 6 again, what I want you to do is that I want you to increase my counter variable by 1, so count plus equal 1, and I want you to continue the loop. Okay, to continue the loop. And also I'll come down here and display a message saying that, so I'll use the print function to actually have a formatted string here, and I'll say something like displaying the number. Okay, then I'll bring the placeholder over here and implement my count over here. Now after this print message, I'm also going to increase the count again, else the program is going to be stuck in an infinite loop, okay, or an infinite loop. So plus equal 1, and when I'm done, I'll just have a final print saying something like so not in the while loop, so not in the while loop. Okay, so now when I run this program, I see that we have displaying, so I actually have caps over here, so displaying the number 1 2 3. Now we see that the set number has been skipped. Okay, so I said the continuous statement is actually used to skip the current iteration, and it is also used to continue to the next iteration. So now we see that we have actually skipped the set item in this loop. Okay, and now we have a final message saying that we are no longer in the loop because the execution was done and we actually needed to skip the set item. Now let's look at what the pass keyword also does. The pass keyword doesn't actually do anything, but what it does is that it is actually used as a placeholder. So in cases we know that we cannot actually have an empty loop. So where we actually use the pass keyword is when we're actually thinking about something. So assuming we have a function over here saying, so say hello. Okay, a function called say hello, and I actually don't know what this function is going to do, so I can actually use the pass keyword as a placeholder so that when I run this program, Python will not actually freak out. Now that is what the pass keyword also does. Now let's top this concept up by actually looking at the difference between a comment and a pass keyword. Now the difference between a comment and the pass keyword is that a comment is a way for us to leave reference to our future self. So we use comments to explain our thought process in a code base. Okay, now as for the pass keyword, it is a placeholder, okay, that is being used to actually denote that we are thinking of what to do next, okay, but we have not actually started it. So with the interpreter, if the code is being run, Python will ignore comments, but for the pass keyword, it runs with the program, denoting that the function implementation is not in yet. So this is the difference between a comment and the pass keyword. Now let's look at a more example on how to use the while loop. So now what I'm going to do here is that I have a program that is going to keep asking the user for an input. As long as we enter something, the program is going to spit what we entered what we give to the program is going to spit it out. Now, if we do something different aside what the program wants us to do, the program is going to end. So now over here, I'm going to have a while keyword over here, and I'll say while true. Okay, I want to say that I have a variable called line, and it's going to take a user input. So I'll have the input variable over here, and I'm simply going to give it a prompt by saying tell me something. Okay, so I'll say tell me something, and I'll use this over here. Now what is going to happen is that I'll actually write a statement over here, a if statement, and say that while not line. Okay, if not line equal an empty um an empty string over here, what should happen is that we should actually print the line. Okay, so we should actually print the line, and we'll use the continuous statement over here. Now we actually know what the continuous statement do, so we're just going to use the continuous statement over here. And now I'll use my else keyword over here, and I'll say else the program should break. So actually, if we don't give the program anything, the program is going to break. Now finally, I want to say that this, so end of program. Okay, so as simple as that, end of program. Now when I run this code, this will keep asking me this will keep asking me to enter something. So I'll say hello world. Okay, now this is going to give me back the what I entered. So when I don't enter anything, okay, this program is going to end. Okay, so this is how this program actually works. So you can actually use the while loop to keep doing something until a condition is being met. Okay, now I have 5 exercises over here that I want us to actually look at. So first, I want us to write a program that will count down from 10 to 1, and then print, hey, we finally made it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is that I'm just going to have a variable I, okay, set to, okay, let's use the count. So count set to 10, and what is going to happen here is that I'm just going to have my while loop. Okay, so while my count, okay, is less than 0, what I want it to happen is that I'll print my count over here, and at the end of it, I'm going to decrease my count. So I'll decrease, so count minus equals 1, and I'll say I'll print something, a message called we finally made it. Okay, made it, so made it to the end. Okay, so as simple as that. Now when I run this program, we see that we have a countdown over here. So 10, 9, 8 up to 1, and our final message was that we finally made it to the end. Okay, so this is how to write a countdown program using a while loop. Now our second example is writing a program to ask the user to enter a number and keep asking until the user enters a number that is greater than 100. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to have while true, because we want to repeat this task continuously. So while true, I actually want to have a variable called number, and since it's going to be an integer, I'm going to cast the input. Okay, so I'll say enter a number. Okay, so enter a number over here, and what will happen next is that I'll use an if statement. So I'll say if the number is greater than 100, okay, I want to break out of the loop. Okay, and I'll print a final message by saying thank you for entering a number greater than 100. So thank you for entering a number that was greater than 100. Okay, so now when I run this program and I enter let's say 12, it will keep asking me, so I'll enter 10. Now when I enter, let's say 1000, now it is going to tell me that thank you for entering a number that is greater than 100. Now our next example is going to be that we are going to write a program that is going to generate a random number from 1 is going to generate a random number between 1 and 10, and then ask the user to guess that number that we generated. Okay, so the program should keep asking until the user gets the number right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use an import statement over here. Don't worry about it for now. I'm going to have a video explaining the Python import, or the import module. Okay, so don't worry about that. Just note that I'm going to import something over here. So import random. Now I'll run this program, and what this random will do is that I'll have a variable called so secret underscore num, and I'll set it to, I'll call the random module, so random dot round int. Okay, so round int is the method that we want to use. So we want to generate a random number between the values of 1 and 10. So now when I run this program and I print this secret number, okay, let's see what it's going to give us. Now the secret number that was generated was 9. So meaning that anytime that we run this program, we'll have a random number generated, and that number is going to be stored inside this secret number variable. Okay, so now let's continue with the program. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start my loop by saying that while true. Okay, so while true, I want the user to guess a number, so I have a variable called guess, and I'll wrap the input with an int to convert the number that I'll enter, which will be a string, to a number. Okay, or to an integer. So I'll tell the user to enter a number or to guess a number. So I'll have a prompt over here to guess my number. Okay, guess my number over here. And what is going to happen is that I'll say I have an if statement and say that if my guess equals the secret number that I have over here, what I want to do is that I want to break out of the loop, and I'll print a congratulation message over here. So I'll say something like this. So let me see, print, so keep guessing. Okay, so keep guessing. Now let's see what this is going to do. After we are able to guess correctly, what is going to happen is that we are just going to print congratulations. Okay, congratulations, you guessed right. So you guessed right over here. So let's run this program and see what is going to happen. Now when I enter 1, okay, keep guessing. 3, keep guessing. 4, keep guessing. So actually the number was 8, 9. So that now the number that was generated was 9. So here I see that I have a congratulations message saying that congratulations, you guessed it right. Okay, so this is how we can also use the while loop to create a simple game over here. Now I have inside the repo, I have the fourth example over here. I have the question in the GitHub repo. Okay, so feel free to check the question and try your hands on the fourth example. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the while loop. Now what I want you to take mainly from this video is that loops are actually used to perform iterative process, and they are also used to execute a block of code multiple times. Now what you should always remember is that as a beginner, what can really throw you off in actually using the while loop is always forgetting to increase the counter. Okay, so you need to explicitly increase the counter anytime you're actually dealing with the while loop. Okay, so we looked at the break statement. It is actually used to terminate the program, and we looked at the continue statement, which is also used to skip the current iteration. And finally we looked at the pass keyword, and we said the pass keyword is actually used as a placeholder in an empty loop or a function or a class. Okay, so now this brings us to the end of the video. If you're not a subscriber to this channel, I want you to hit the subscribe button and subscribe to this channel, and also hit on the notification bell so that anytime that I post content, you will just be notified in time. All right guys, catch you in the next tutorial. Bye.